Sometimes 1 minute can take a long time.
It's 4:30 now.
Yeah, I'm showing 4:30.
Yep,
Okay.
we're ready to go, Mr. President, when you are.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District. And join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
of America,
And to the
republic,
Which is
and
one nation,
nation,
God.
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
Liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for
for all.
for all. Bob?
Okay. I'll do my usual serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Roll call, please.
Director Michael Schaefer,
Here.
Director Arthur Perry,
Here.
Secretary Arlene Schaefer,
Here.
Vice President Robert Uten,
Here.
President James Fairman.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay. We have any late communications or announcements to make?
Yes, Mr. President, we did receive a late communications this morning from Mr. Jim Mosier. Staff responded to his questions and we made that available to the board. And I believe, are those available to the public as well, Nolani?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so those are available to the board and to the public.
Okay. Thank you.
Oops.
Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Sir, do we have any ceremonial presentations or matters?
No, Mr. President.
Okay. Public comments. Do we have anyone in the audience who'd like to address the board?
Nolani, did they get addressed by email?
We received only the public comments from Mr. Mosier, and I am happy to address those comments as we reach those agenda items.
Okay.
I have a question, Jim. I have a question on those comments from Mr. Mosier.
Yeah.
Nolani, he had made a point about the fact that he thought that the agenda was being posted later than normal. Was that just a convenience thing for him, or we're still following all the Brown Act stipulations regarding posting, aren't we?
That is correct, Mr. Schaefer. We are posting in accordance with the Brown Act. Since this is a regular meeting, we do post within 72 hours, so we oblige that on Friday, and we are okay.
Okay, I thought that was the case. So it's more of a matter of convenience for him. That's why he addressed it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jim.
Hearing no more public being represented, we're going to move along to the consent calendar. And
Mr. President, if I can interrupt here real quick, is it okay? The staff has a request to pull item number 3 from the consent calendar.
they didn't do what?
Staff is requesting to pull item number 3 from the consent calendar for discussion.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. So
Move approval with staff discussion of item 3.
I'll second that.
second, no.
it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll go to item 3. Approve the Board of Directors special meeting minutes of March 19th, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. President. We just want to let the board and the public be aware that there is a correction in the minutes on page 6. We indicated in the minutes that the meeting adjourned at 9:34 in the morning, which meant the meeting only lasted 4 minutes, and we know that's not true. So, Nolani, if you can please tell the board and the public what time that meeting adjourned.
The special meeting adjourned at 10:10 a.m.
We just want to reflect that in the record.
Okay.
I'll move for approval of number 3 with those corrections.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. President, I have one more
Uh,
comment. Mr. President, I have one more comment regarding the consent calendar, if you don't mind. And that I just
Sure.
want to let the board be aware that staff forgot to place on the consent calendar the staff report regarding contracts and purchase orders signed by the general manager for the month of March. We just forgot to put that on the agenda. So on your May agenda, we will have the March and the April list available for you. So I just want to make that aware to you. That was just our mistake that it was not on the consent calendar.
Is everybody okay with that?
No, we can wait till.
Okay. We don't need a motion on that?
No, it's just FYI, Mr. President.
Yeah, just for the. Okay, where are we here?
General Manager's
Manager's
report.
report.
Item number 1. And Mr. President, just as a matter of housekeeping for any of the votes that are being recorded, if we could do a roll call vote, please.
Mhm.
Okay,
Thank you.
roll call, please.
Oh, just upon approval of any items that need approval, Mr. President.
Okay. Anybody have anything? Let's move along. General Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first item on the agenda on the General Manager's report is to consider approving Cal OES Form 130, was a resolution designating the district's authorized agents for requesting disaster assistance. And I'm going to have Gina Terriano on the staff report.
Thank you, Scott. Good morning, or sorry, good afternoon, members of the board. Before you is a request to approve Cal OES Form 130, which would allow the district to designate the general manager and the finance manager with the authority to request federal and state disaster assistance reimbursement on behalf of the district. As we prepare for the recovery process for the COVID-19 pandemic, staff is tracking all costs related to the pandemic and submitting all documentation necessary to obtain reimbursement. Many of the required forms require an authorized agent, and the resolution that is attached to the staff report designates the general manager and finance manager as these agents. So if approved, the resolution will remain in effect for the COVID-19 pandemic and for all future disasters within the next 3 years. So that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have one, Jim. Have we submitted any requests for reimbursement yet?
Yes, so the finance department with Caitlin and Lou, they are both working on submitting all of the forms necessary for reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, this is Mike. I have a question as well.
Yeah.
Gina, why didn't we have this on file with Cal OES? Why do we have to do this at every emergency situation, or why isn't this an ongoing stipulation?
My understanding is that it's because we haven't requested reimbursement, at least not in the last 3 years. So
Okay.
it will remain in effect for the next 3 years once it's passed.
Okay, so that was the second part of my question is this will be a 3-year cycle on all these, whatever they are. Okay, thank you. That answers it.
You say a 3-year cycle?
Approval?
Yes, the form will be for 3 years for those 2 people designated from our district.
Yes.
Okay.
Move approval?
I'll
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Here's where you need a roll call vote.
Oh,
Perry says yes.
We need a roll call.
Director Perry,
Yes.
Director Schaefer,
Yes.
Secretary Schaefer,
Yes.
Vice President Uden,
Yes.
President James Fairman.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, are we on, what's the number, the general manager report?
E2, Mr. President.
E2.
Yep, number 2 under general manager's report.
Oh, yeah, okay. Consider adopting resolution 2020 XXX appointing from Orange County Sanitation District as alternative district engineer.
Mr. President, that's item number 3. We'll get that. If you, do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to go to item number 2?
Well, somebody told me number 2 was the one, but it doesn't matter to me.
Okay, so number 2 is consider appointing 2 board members to serve on an engineering service ad hoc committee. This item was requested by Vice President Uten and Secretary Schaefer to place this item on the agenda for the board's consideration. As you know, back in January, the board approved Michael Benesh as the interim district engineer with Robin Hamers and Associates. And the board wanted to continue using RBH services for 6 months and then reevaluate in June. Vice President Uten and Secretary Schaefer believes a committee should be formed to look at all options. So that's up for considerations tonight if you want to consider that committee or not.
Scott, I think the problem is we have 2 different agendas, like Mr. Mosier pointed out. So number 2 under the other agenda, the shorter one, is what President Ferryman was saying. So I don't have that item on my agenda.
I apologize. That was the draft agenda that had somehow gotten attached to this meeting agenda. If you will look at the board docs agenda that has all of the call information, not the ones that have the blank lines in them, that's the agenda that we need to go off of.
Okay.
And Nolani's putting the agenda on the screen here, so you should be able to see it on your screen.
I
as
see
well.
it.
I see it.
Okay.
I'd like to nominate Bob Uten as one of the ad hoc members.
I'll second.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Okay, so moved and seconded.
We
Any
need a
further
second.
discussion?
Yeah, we need one more person selected.
Yes, correct.
It could be you, Jim, with your background at Orange County SAM. Just a thought. I mean, I'm game for anybody else to be on it, but Bob for sure. So I'll nominate Jim Fairman as a second person.
I'll second that. Jim, do you have the time for that?
I can make, I'll be over there anyway.
Okay, that's all that matters.
Okay,
So
it's
now-
been
We have our 2.
moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
We can't do that. Roll call.
May we have a roll call vote, please, Mr. President?
Okay, let's have a roll
Director-
call.
Director Perry,
Yes.
Director Schaefer,
Yes.
Secretary Schaefer,
Yes.
Vice President Uten,
Yes.
President Fairman.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item 3, employee lending agreement with the Orange County Sanitation District for alternative district engineer position.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we've had an employee lending agreement with the Orange County Sanitation District for going on 6 years now. And for the past, last 5 years, it was Rudy Davila who served as our alternate district engineer when Rob Hamers, or now when Mike Benesh is the engineer of record for private development. If that's the case, then Mike cannot approve the plans, and then he brings those plans to Rudy, and he signs as the alternate district engineer. Good news is that he received a promotion at OCSD, so he will not be no longer serving in his current capacity. And then the other good news is they did find his replacement, and that's Daniel Lee, who is a professional licensed engineer. He will serve as the new alternate district engineer if the board approves the resolution. You have to approve the resolution appointing him as the alternate district engineer. And then we have a new lending agreement for another 1 year. The good news about having Daniel as the alternate engineer is that he costs less than Rudy. So there's a little bit of savings there, from $89.63 an hour to $73 and 3 cents an hour. So that's good. So staff is recommending approving the employee lending agreement with Orange County Sanitation District and adopting resolution number 2020-928, approving OCSD employee Daniel Lee as the district's alternate district engineer.
I'll second that. With the comment that I think it's great that we're able to have some partnership like that.
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
There's
All those in favor,
Wait, do we
signify by
get
saying aye.
Let's go roll call.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, I missed who made the motion, please.
I did.
I
And
don't,
do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
Mr. President, we also received public comment on this item that I would need to read aloud, if you don't mind.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Mr. Mosher did make a comment about correcting the ordinance section of the operations code for this item. He also said it might be noted that per section 3.01.045, the alternate engineer can be assigned duties other than those mentioned in the staff report and resolution. In particular, in addition to being required to serve when the district engineer has a conflict, the alternate engineer can be called on to assess the reasonableness of cost proposals submitted by the district engineer when the latter works for a private firm. I don't know if this has been happening or is desired. As best I can tell, the proposed employee lending agreement mentions using the alternate engineer only in the event of conflicts, not for providing second opinions as to the reasonable cost of engineering services.
Did Alan get a chance to look at that and make an opinion?
No, Director Perry. My response was, that section of the code was adopted before we had the lending agreement with OCSD, and it was adopted, I think, when Bruce Mattern was the alternate district engineer. If you may recall, Bruce Mattern. And so, if I correct me or wrong, but I believe the board put that language in the code to have Bruce review Rob's proposals to make sure that they're reasonable and they're not exorbitant. And I think that's why they were put that language in the code. Now we don't really use it anymore, and we could revise it. We've never had Rudy review Rob's proposals. We strictly stick to the scope of work that's identified in the lending agreement. And the lending agreement does not state that the alternate district engineer will review alternative proposals.
Hey, Scott, would it be, is it your recollection? As I remember it when we did that, I think you determined that you were capable of making judgments about the reasonableness of the cost.
Yes, and I have done that. That is true. Thank you, Alan. I have done that too. Generally, the way I assume, or the way I make a comparison, if the cost is reasonable, generally like a design or inspection is usually 10% of the construction cost, and Rob's was always well below that 10% threshold.
Well, we have a policy committee. I think that a policy ad hoc committee with Director Schaefer, and I'm not sure who else is on it.
Very.
Maybe it's correct the way it's written, but we maybe could clarify it, through that policy ad hoc committee.
Sure. We can bring it back to them.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Are we ready to vote on item 3?
Well, should we wait until we look that over first as an ad hoc committee?
No, I think you can move forward. You can proceed because my recommendation would be just to remove that section from the code. The contract with OCSD is going to expire next month, and so we need a new contract with them.
Mhm.
I agree with that, Mr. President. I think we need something in place in case Rob Hamer's Michael Benesch organization has a conflict in the meantime. If you determine that you want some outside advice on the reasonableness of the proposal, we can, the Orange County Sanitation District will do it. We can amend that contract. And if we have to go outside to another source, we can do that also. But I think it's important we have something in place in case a conflict arises.
Okay, I
How do
agree.
we move forward with what's presented to us at the moment, though?
Approve it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. That's what I was hoping. That's what I was hoping.
Roll call vote.
Director Perry,
Yeah, roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Director Perry,
Yes.
Director Schaefer,
Yes.
Secretary Schaefer,
Yes.
Vice President Uten,
Yes.
President Ferryman.
Yes,
Motion carries 5-0.
thank you. Item 4, declaration of qualification or to vote for the designating the authorized regular voting member and the alternative voting member from the Coast Place Sanitary District for the appointment process of Orange County Local Agency Commission regular special district member C.
I think that's the wrong item. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Scott, are we going to pass the resolution appointing Brian Lee? Is that still on the agenda? Is that meant to be part of the
I
agreement?
think if correct me if I'm wrong, but it was one motion approving two recommendations. So
Right.
the recommendation was to adopt the agreement and the resolution. That was on item number 3.
Okay. Well, if the motion reflects that, then.
Yes.
That was for item 3.
We're on item E4 now, sir.
So this is to consider appointing one member to the Citizens Advisory Committee to fill the vacant one-year term ending in March 2021 and appoint 6 members to serve a 2-year term ending March 2022. I'm going to turn this over to our district clerk, Nolan Midway.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. The applications were provided to the board at this month's study session for your review. And tonight it would be appropriate for the board to consider one member of the 8 individuals who had applied to serve a 1-year term and 6 other members to serve a 2-year term that will end in March of 2022. The board had asked staff to reach out to 2 of the applicants, Daniel Baum and Phil Marsh, to submit information as to why they are interested in serving on the CAC, which they did respond to, and those comments have been included in the applications. So at this time, if you would kindly nominate and appoint the 1 member to serve the 1-year term vacancy. We can take that now.
I'll get it started.
Okay.
I would nominate, and I'm sorry about the name pronunciation, but I would nominate Leith Speets to be the 1-year director.
Hmm.
Who?
Leith Speets, Speightds, as the 1-year director.
Hmm.
And then the 6 directors that I would nominate for the 2-year would be Mike Carey, Berger Fernandez, Elodie Katz, Phil Marsh, Andrew Nielsen, and Seth Greener.
Okay. Okay, I guess we're all going to disagree, huh? Should I say who I have?
Well, I have a motion before the,
Oh, that's the motion, huh? Okay.
that was the motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I'll take the roll call vote, Mr. President. Director Perry,
No.
Oh, roll call. Huh?
No.
Director Schaefer,
No.
Yep.
Secretary Schaefer,
No.
Vice
Alright.
President Uten,
Yes.
President Ferryman.
Yes.
Motion
I think-
carries 3-2.
I think we're leaving out a really good candidate in that Baum.
Oh,
Baum he's been a Daniel Baum is a great citizen of Costa Mesa and has a lot of background with the city. And I think he's one that we should, I know the motion passed, but I think didn't have any discussion about it.
Wait a minute, I was under the impression that he was included in that list.
No,
No, he was not. He was not. And
Well,
Daniel Baum should be, from my point
I
of view.
definitely want to support him.
So did
You
I.
could do a motion to reconsider.
Motion to reconsider.
And
I'll
I'll
make
second.
Who made the motion to reconsider?
I did, Art Perry.
Okay,
Okay.
and somebody seconded it? If not, I'll second that.
Roll call?
Director Perry,
Yes.
Director Schaefer,
yes,
I'm sorry.
Secretary Schaefer,
Yes,
Vice President Uten,
Yes,
President Fairman.
Yes,
Motion carries 5-0 to reconsider.
okay.
I entertain a motion.
What I would like to do is, I'll make a motion to include Daniel Baum, Mike Carey, Berger Fernandez,
Mhm.
Seth Grainer, Phil Marsh, and Andrew Nielsen. And then the 1-year term would be Ellie Katz.
I'll second that motion.
who did you leave off, Art?
I left off, I think it's Leah Spretz, I
Yeah,
believe. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Leith,
it is.
But it's a toss up for me. If someone has strong feelings, I could change that.
I don't have strong feelings. I just want to make sure, and I'm going to ask this to Alan. We had a motion and a second that was approved. So the action to reconsider, Alan, is that what we did to
Yes.
change that vote we already took?
Yes, and that passed, so now it's matters
Okay.
back before you to vote again.
Okay, that I just want to make sure that that's what we were doing, and I don't, call for the question. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Did you have a question, Arlene?
And I just wanted to say, I think they're all good people, It's very hard. I mean, I spent a lot of time on this, looking it over, but I think you have to look at the experience and what the person is going to give as far as time and the attendance, because you can get people that can't make it, and yet they just don't have that kind of community experience that you need. So anyway, that's my
Yeah. My only comment, and when the initial applications went out, I wish Mr. Baum had at least told us from the very beginning why he wanted. We shouldn't have had to reach back. Now with Phil Marsh, it's a little different because he's an existing member, but Mr. Baum is brand new to this, so I just wish he'd have done that from the very beginning instead of
Yeah.
having to do extra.
I agree.
Go give anything you want.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We're having a roll call, right?
Yeah, you're getting,
Mr. President, who provided the second, please?
Arlene did.
Thank you. Okay, Director Perry,
Yes. Yes.
Director Schaefer,
Yes.
Secretary Schaefer,
yes.
Vice President Uten,
yes,
President Ferryman.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.
Ooh,
thank you. Okay. We're down to item 6. Is that correct?
Item 5.
5.
Item 5.
Citizens Advisory Committee, once again. Consider appointing an applicant. I thought we just did that.
You gotta get on the other agenda, Mr. President. I'm doing the same thing. There's 2 different agendas. You need to be on the one that's on the board.
Receive and file.
What is your 6? What is your number?
6 is different. It's
Number five is what we just did, but we can do it again, I
No,
guess.
Mr. President, number 5 is receive and file a third quarter budget review for
Yeah.
fiscal year 2019 and 20. And I'm going to have Caitlin Tran give this report.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. In front of you is the fiscal year 2019-20 third quarter budget review. As of March 31st, a total of 64.3% of the solid waste budget has been expended. Overall, staff anticipate a budgetary savings of $129,300 at fiscal year end. Of that amount, personnel budget will have a savings of $62,000. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the recruitment for the accounting clerk position is on hold until further notice. These savings are from salaries and benefits accounts due to the vacancy of the accounting clerk, staff on leave without pay, and the board salaries. The fiscal services account includes the auditor and the treasurer budget. During the absence of the accountant, the district treasurer assisted the finance department with the fiscal year 2018-19 audit and the CAFR. Staff projects this account to be over budget by $3,000 on June 30th. The savings from salaries and benefits account will offset this overage. The Spring Citizens Environmental Protection Academy and the compost giveaway event has been canceled due to the COVID pandemic. Staff anticipate a savings of $4,000 from the Public Info Education Community Promotion account. Due to the stay-at-home order issued by the governor on March 19th, the district purchased software licenses to allow employees to telework. The district pays a monthly subscription fee to Zoom to provide video conferences such as this meeting. Personal protective equipment and cleaning products were also purchased. Staff projects the EOC equipment and supply account to be over budget by $500. The district is eligible for FEMA reimbursement with any cost associated with this pandemic. Staff is currently tracking all expenditures and will request for reimbursement. Staff projects a savings of $10,800 in professional development and training account. Due to the pandemic, several conferences and training sessions have been canceled. The telephone account is projected to be over budget by $1,500 at fiscal year end. The district implemented a site replication service with Spectrum Communication in August 2019. This replication allows the district headquarters servers to be duplicate at the district yard. The monthly service fee was not included in this budget. Since the district installed the solar panel at headquarters, the electric costs have been reduced. Staff anticipate a savings of $900 from the utilities account. The organics disposal, overall disposal is up by 182.78 tons compared to this time last year, with the third quarter trending 2.6% above last year's levels. Although tonnages have been increasing in the third quarter, disposal is not as high as expected overall. Staff estimate there will be an increase in tonnages in the fourth quarter. However, the account will be within the budget amount by fiscal year end. Special programs. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected the district programs. Overall, staff anticipate a savings of $54,000 in these programs. The capital outlay amended budget of $8,988 is expected to be fully expended. The district replaced the audio-visual system in the boardroom in January 2020. Computer software hardware updates and 2 rooftop air conditioning units at the district headquarters are in progress. Now I'm going over the wastewater fund. A total of 64.5% of the wastewater fund operating budget has been expended as of March 31st. Overall, staff anticipate a budgetary savings of $347,700 at fiscal year end. The wastewater fund has 3 vacant positions, the accounting clerk and 2 wastewater maintenance worker 1. Staff estimate the wastewater personnel budget will have a savings of $222,000. These savings are from salaries and benefits accounts due to the vacancy of the 3 positions, staff leave without pay, and board salaries. Based on the monthly average, staff estimate the engineering services account to be under budget by $20,000 at year end. Plan checking inspection account, staff anticipate these accounts will have a savings of $40,000. New development in Costa Mesa have decreased compared to previous years. In addition, the pandemic is affecting the city development. The district has been receiving less plans compared to last year. The anticipated savings of $40,000 will offset by reduced revenues in the permit department. The district treasurer assisted the finance department with the fiscal year 2018-19 audit and CAFR during the absence of the accountant. Staff projects the fiscal services account in the wastewater fund to be over budget by $6,700. The savings from the salaries and benefits accounts will offset this overage. The sewer inspection rebate program has a budget of $30,000. As of March 31st, only $8,700 has been reimbursed. Staff projects the fiscal year and total reimbursement to be 50% under budget. The EOC equipment and supply account, as I mentioned earlier, due to the stay-at-home order issued by the governor, the district purchased software licenses, monthly subscription fee to Zoom, personal protective equipment, and cleaning products. Staff projects this account to be over budget by $4,500. The district is eligible for FEMA reimbursement. Staff is currently tracking all expenditures and will request for reimbursement. Professional development training account. Due to the pandemic, several conferences and training sessions have been canceled. Staff projects a savings of $43,400 in the wastewater professional development training account. Again, telephone account, staff projects this account to be over budget by $8,800 at the fiscal year end due to the site replication service with Spectrum Communications. Staff anticipate a savings of $7,800 from the utilities account since the district installed the solar panels at headquarters. Capital outlay. Wastewater capital outlay is expected to have a savings of $19,000 at fiscal year end. The new Vector truck, the superintendent truck, and the new utility truck have all been purchased and received. Now I will move on to revenue analysis. Annual charges. The solid waste and annual charges revenue account has a budget of $5,166,600. In August 2019, the total amount placed on the county assessment after corrections were made was less than the amount budgeted. As of March 31st, the district has received 64% of the revenues. The district is on target compared to last year, March 31st, 2019, with 64% of revenue received. Staff projects the COVID-19 pandemic will not have a major impact on the district annual charges collection for this fiscal year. The wastewater annual charges revenue account has a budget of $5,610,000. In August 2019, the total amount placed on the county assessment after corrections were made was approximately $400 more than the amount budgeted. As of March 31st, same as solid waste fund, the district has received 64% of the revenues. The numbers are not included in this report, but just for your information, as of today, April 27, the district received from the county 96% of the annual charges revenue in both funds. Property taxes. The district budgeted $320,000 in the property tax revenue this fiscal year and has received 70% of the revenues as of March 31st. Beginning of the fiscal year, the property tax revenue has been recorded to the general fund instead of the solid waste fund. During the budget process, the board of directors approved $270,000 to be transferred to the solid waste fund to help stabilize rates and $50,000 to the wastewater fund to contribute to the city of Costa Mesa for a portable restroom at the bridge shelter. Staff has transferred $143,857 to the solid waste fund and $25,000 to the wastewater fund for the first half of the fiscal year. Staff will transfer the remaining balance at the end of the fiscal year. Staff projects the COVID-19 will not have a major impact on the district property tax collection. The additional container charges revenue has a budget account of $110,000. CR&R charges customers directly for the additional container cost and is entitled to 20% of the money collected. The first and second quarters have generated $54,281. CR&R received 20% of that amount. The district should receive the third quarter revenues by the end of this month. Investment earnings are initially recorded 100% in the solid waste fund and allocated to other funds quarterly. As of March 31st, after allocation, the solid waste fund received $51,394. The wastewater fund received $109,650. Contributions. The district has received $35,878 from CR&R for our education programs. In addition, CR&R agreed to contribute an additional $19,000 to the communication support and strategy costs, which was not a budgeted item. The district is expecting to receive the contribution by the end of the fiscal year. Residents of newly developed properties pay a prorated fee for services during the year until they can be placed on the county assessment. The revenue account has a budget of, this revenue account in the solid wastewater has a budget of $104,000 and $40,000 in the wastewater fund. Earlier this year, the board of directors approved 2 refunds of the 2 property owners that had been overcharged during the course of many years in the solid waste and wastewater services. The district has refunded $8,825 from the solid waste fund and approximately $6,000 from the wastewater fund. As a result, the balances at March 31st are approximately $93,000 revenues in the solid waste fund and approximately $16,000 in the wastewater fund. Staff anticipates the pandemic will have an impact on the charges for services account in both funds in the fourth quarter. Sewer permits revenue account has a budget of $55,000. As of March 31st, the district received $38,420. The district has been receiving a steady revenue compared to last year's third quarter revenue. However, staff projects the district will not receive as much revenue as expected in the fourth quarter due to the pandemic. Inspection fees revenue account has a budget of $125,000. As of March 31st, the district received approximately $93,000. The district has been receiving a steady revenue compared to last year, third quarter. However, staff projects the district will not be receiving as much revenue as expected in the fourth quarter. This ties back to the savings in the expenditure, plan checking, and inspection accounts, as I mentioned previously, because we're not receiving plans, we're not collecting fees, so we're not sending out inspectors to inspect or for the district engineers to review plans, so it's offset each other. The other non-operating revenue, solid waste, includes grants and other reimbursement. As of March 31st, the district has received approximately $135,000. In the wastewater, the non-operating revenues account received approximately $104,000 in other non-operating revenues. That's the end of my report, a very long report. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Wow.
Anybody have a question?
I just have a comment when you want to, when it's my turn. I have a comment. Can you hear me, Jim?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, my comment was on the sewer inspection rebate program. It seems like, we're not giving back a lot of money like we had done in the past. We may want to look at that again and see how we can improve that program. That's my only comment I have. As I read through this whole thing and it looks pretty good, really. And the only thing I have to worry about maybe is income for next year if people don't pay their property taxes, but that'll be in the next year, not this year.
Yeah.
Those are my two concerns.
If that should happen, Alan, what recourse do we have with those? Do we have any recourse for the people that don't pay their property taxes?
It would go on the uncollected assessment roll, and it would still remain a charge against the property. So you are protected. You would eventually get your money unless somebody was so upside down in their mortgage that there was no value left. But chances are you're always going to collect your money, but it might be quite a few years later by the time they actually foreclose on the property to foreclose on the tax lien.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, you would get interest.
I've been attending some webinars, trainings, and they're projecting that property tax won't be affected as much as sale tax. It's not going to have a big impact.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
I just had a comment. You did a wonderful job on that. Boy, that's a lot to take in. I bet you're glad it's over.
Thank you. I put a lot of time in it, and sorry for the long report.
No, it was right, detailed. It was good. We could understand it. At least I could.
Thank you, Caitlin. You did a good job. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, we receive and file that portion of it.
Yes.
And is it engineer's report?
No, Mr. President. The next item on the agenda is receive and file the 2020 first quarter, which is January and March, performance measurement report. So this is another one of your standard quarterly reports on our performance measurement program, which we implemented in 2018. It's as you know, it's a tool to engage on our performance and identify areas that we can enhance or make improvements. I do want to mention that we did add 2 new measurements in the program. One of them is a percent of purchase transactions processed through e-commerce, like through PayPal or on a credit cards. And another measurement is having formal bids being awarded by the board of directors within 60 days. One measurement that is temporarily being discontinued is the diversion, 75% diversion away from the landfills. Last month, the board gave us, or I guess it was last study session, the board gave us the approval to suspend the recycling reports at this time until we can have more confidence in the data. And so we're meeting with CR&R and looking at ways to ensure that the data that we receive on the recyclables and diversion is accurate. So we'll bring that measurement back, but right now we're going to discontinue until we're more confident in the data. And then you have some measurements that basically the data is going to be zero, unfortunately, because of special events. We don't anticipate there's going to be any special events in 2020 due to COVID-19. As you probably already heard, on the pilot that the Fair Board is canceling the fairs this year. So we think that's going to be all across the city and in California, that special events are going to be postponed this year. So you'll see a lot of zeros in some of those measurements. But other than that, everything's off and running, and happy to answer any of your questions.
Any questions for Scott?
Mr. President, we also received public comment on this item. If you wouldn't mind me reading that, please.
Or is there anybody in the public who cares to address the board in this regard?
I do have public comment from Mr. Mosher on this item, Mr. President. His comments are regarding the last part of the analysis dealing with community event goals. I don't understand the statement that data for the following measurements may not be obtained for the entire 2020 year. I appreciate the numbers are expected to be low due to cancellation of events, but that's not to say the numbers won't exist, even if they're zero.
Okay.
And that concludes his comments.
Thank you. Any other questions or observations?
No.
Okay, let's, we'll receive and file that
Yes, Mr. President.
and move along to
Item 7.
We're going to receive and file the 2015-20 strategic plan quarterly update for fiscal year 2019 and 20. This is the 3rd quarter, and coming to the end of our 5-year strategic plan. And so, as I mentioned in the staff report, that we are already in the process of developing our new 5-year plan for fiscal year 2020 to 2025. We had a meeting, our staff had our 3rd meeting today, and then we're gonna have one more meeting on Wednesday, and then we'll present a draft to receive your comments, suggestions, edits, as well as the public's comments on Wednesday, May 6th. So it's a special meeting, I believe at 9:30, Nalani, is that correct?
Yes.
9:30, thank you. So a special meeting on Wednesday is for the public to know. A special meeting next Wednesday, May 6th at 9:30 to discuss our strategic plan. So if you have any questions regarding this report, I'm happy to answer them.
any
Will this-
questions?
Will this be on a Zoom?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Okay, anybody else have a comment or observation?
Did you say 9 a.m. or 9:30?
9:30.
Yeah, 9:30. Okay, that's what I 9:30. I have 9 a.m. on my calendar. Okay.
Okay, performance measurement program update.
Mr. President, we're under the engineer's report now. So this is the receive and file the monthly capital improvements project status report.
Okay. Any questions of the engineer?
Bob, did you have any questions?
No, thank you.
I looked it over. It looks pretty good and up to date. Is Michael online with us?
Yeah,
Yes.
Does Michael have any comments?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll receive and file the monthly capital improvement project status and move on to treasurer's report.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, we have two more items on the engineer's report. The next item on the engineer's report is project capital improvement Project number 224, which is the brick manhole rehabilitation project. This item is to accept improvements as completed, file notice of completion, exonerate labor and material bonds 35 days after notice completion, and exonerate faithful performance bond. And Michael Benish will be giving this report.
I'll
Okay.
move approval.
Second.
Let's hear from Michael. Is Michael going to give a report?
Yeah.
I thought I was. Okay. This is the construction of the improvements for capital improvement project number 324, brick manhole rehabilitation, were completed on March 25th, 2020. And therefore, it's appropriate for the district to accept the improvements and file a notice of completion. The project included lining 10 existing brick manholes with cured in place liners. The liners should provide protection against sulfide corrosion and increase the seismic resistance of the brick manholes for up to another 50 years.
I have a question, Michael. When we have this work done, do you inspect it? Someone from your staff inspect it, the work that's
Oh, yeah.
done?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That looks good. So this is just a notice of completion.
That's correct.
And item 3, is that included in that group? Exonerate labor and material bond
Yes,
after notice of
that's part of the
completion.
recommendation, Mr. President.
Okay. Let's see, do we need a?
I'll move
Call for the
approval.
question.
been moved and
Director
seconded.
Perry?
You know,
Is this
motion
back
and
to,
second.
manhole rehabilitation? Which one are we voting on?
You're going to vote on all three together?
Yes.
Yes,
We haven't talked about the Mendoza pump station, have we?
No, this is number 2, brick manhole rehabilitation. Accept improvements, file notice of completion, and exonerate labor and material bond.
move approval.
Second.
We already, okay. Director Perry?
Moved and seconded.
Yes.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
We need a roll call.
Yes.
God.
You tried to stick that in.
Director
Okay.
Perry?
Yes.
Director Schaefer?
Yes.
Secretary Schaefer?
Yes.
Vice President Uten?
Yes,
President Ferryman?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, treasurer's report.
One more thing, Jim.
We have one more item on engineer's report, and that's the receive and file the Mendoza pump station inflow report. And again, Michael Benesh will be giving his report.
Okay, in October 2019, a smoke test was performed on a portion of the sewer area tributary to the Mendoza pump station to identify defects that allowed rainwater to enter the sewer system. In a further attempt to identify stormwater inflows into that system, ADS Environmental Services was contracted in December to install a flow monitor in a manhole near Arlington Drive, north of the Orange County Fairground property. The incoming flows from the 8-inch sewer main south of the manhole were monitored during the period from December 13th to March 24th. The only properties connected to this sewer are the fairgrounds to the south, and there's also a lateral going to the east along Arlington Drive that runs into the dog park. During the period that was monitored, there were 4 significant rain events. Coinciding with each of these events, a very sizable increase in the sewer flow was measured. District maintenance staff performed a dye test on a number of the drain inlets located on the fairground property and identified 2 that were connected to the sewer system. These 2 inlets were later filled with concrete. Reviewing the logs provided by ADS during the month of February, which was the only really dry month in that period, the average flow through the meter was 6,800 gallons per day. The amount of flow measured after each of the 4 rain events was substantial and it's listed below. December 23rd, there was 1.41 inches of rain, 120,344 gallons flowed through the manhole. 113,544 gallons higher than the average flow, and the peak flow was 0.65 MGD. On December 25th, 1.92 inches of rainfall fell. 138,232 gallons flowed through the manhole. That's 131,432 gallons higher than the average flow, and the peak flow was 0.54 MGD. On March 9th, 0.48 inches of rain fell. 27,187 gallons flowed through the manhole. 20,387 gallons more than the average flow, and the peak flow was 0.16 MGD. On March 12th and 13th, there was a 1.37 inch rainfall. 128,903 gallons flowed through the manhole. 122,103 gallons higher than the average flow, and a peak flow of 0.78 MGD. As noted in the ADS report, the peak capacity of the monitored sewer pipe was about 0.65 MGD. The velocity and flow measured in the pipe indicated it was surcharged during that last event on March 12th and 13th, meaning it was flowing full and under pressure. The condition can lead easily to backing up and to sewer spills if it's allowed to happen. As also noted in the ADS report, the tributary area necessary to generate this much runoff from those storm events would have to be a minimum of 3 acres of paved area. The 2 storm drain grades connected to the sewer system are located in paved areas and may have been the source of a portion of the measured inflow. I estimated the area going into those, and it was about 1.5 acres at most. Smoke testing on the fairgrounds property could locate any additional sources of stormwater inflow into the sewer system. The recommendation is for the board of directors to receive and file this report and discuss smoke testing on the fairgrounds property.
Okay, any comments or questions?
How do we solve this problem? Do we have any advice on how to do that?
Could I make a comment, Mr. President, before you get to Director Perry's question?
Please.
It's interesting that the 0.75 MGD is the entire sewer flow of the Home Garden Sanitary District, which is a small community of like 10,000 people, but some industries too, and the entirety of that is produced by this property apparently, which is kind of stunning to me. It just comes off of asphalt area.
Well, I've been doing a little investigation of this, and I'm talking to Orange County Sand District because they're very interested in what are called illegal storm drain connections to the sanitary sewers. Turns out this is the old Army base. It's only a small portion of the old Army base. One of the die-tested storm drains apparently is connected to a sanitary sewer because it comes in the manhole, as it was originally constructed. I think we need to have an update at the at our first meeting in May. I would highly recommend that we smoke test this area, and Orange County Sand District has agreed that they could potentially help us. They're very interested in illegal connections like this, storm drains to the sanitary sewer. This rainstorm, the flow measured during these rainstorms, actually the rain was minimal in comparison to some of the rainstorms that we've had. I'm surprised that we haven't had a sanitary sewer overflow, when a small amount of rain caused a surcharge around the flow meter. I think we need to move on this as quickly as possible to give the state ample time to disconnect these connections. Michael, did you say that they had put concrete in these things already?
That's what I've been told, that the two that were identified have been filled in with concrete.
I think we need to inspect that again and put dye in there. I think there's probably as many as 15 to 20 potential illegal connections in order to generate that amount of flow. It's going to be extremely difficult. Well, I think we need to move as quickly as possible, but I think at our study session, we need to have an update and try to generate a plan or figure out how to generate a plan. Who should generate a plan to resolve these issues as quickly as possible? This is about maybe a tenth of the old Army base. They had miles and miles and miles of sewer, water, and so on. Orange Coast College is on this. The two schools, or 3 or 4 schools on this. I think I'll say it. I think the federal government or whoever, or the old Army base, we have ample opportunity to find all kinds of illegal connections over there in all of those properties, and I think it's imperative that we get going on it as soon as possible. Anyway, sorry for the long-winded discussion. But.
Thank you, Bob. Anybody else have a comment?
I had a question to Director Uten. Are you suggesting we put this on their study session for May?
Yes.
And if so, is that the date of the 12th for the study session?
I'm not sure what the date is. I have to look on my calendar. But Scott, do you know when May study session is?
Nolani?
May 12th.
Thank you.
It is May 12th?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
Sorry, Nolani, but I'm looking at a calendar.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I've always thought that Bob is right, that there's a lot of connections that we're not aware of, either on the fairgrounds or at Orange Coast College, that aren't being plugged or that are draining into our system. I don't know. I've always felt that. But I think we need to double check that they've filled those 2 in with cement.
Yeah.
I would think that as part of your study session, you'd want to identify how do we determine where the illegal connections are and what volume they're producing. And then, even including looking at voluntary investigation versus, if you have to get a warrant or something like that. You don't want to do that, of course, at first, but if you get stonewalled. And then secondly, if it can be diverted to a storm drain, that's fine. But if it can't, then there's the issue of the surcharge and, an increased sewer fee for what's going down our line, because this seems really dramatic.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think we need, to. I don't know if we can work on a plan. Scott, who would you recommend be in charge of developing a plan?
Well, I think we talked about this. I think the first step to do is to smoke test it, smoke test the property. I think that will. I think it'd be quite interesting to watch that process.
Yeah, I agree.
I think so. For the main media, I can get a cost proposal. I know we don't have. So I'll get a cost proposal presented to you in the May study session to see as fast as possible.
There's something wrong with the audio right now.
Yeah, something is going on.
Okay, well, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
That's better.
Could you say it again? What you
We're
said?
going to have this in a study session, so why don't we move along? We can discuss it then.
Sure, and I can bring you a proposal for a smoke testing in the study session.
Do we
Yeah.
need to name people to be in charge of this, or just,
I'll bring a proposal from ADS, and then we can discuss it.
okay, sounds good.
Hey, Jim, this is Mike. Before we move away from the engineer's report, I have a couple of questions for Scott and Michael, if it's okay.
Go ahead.
Two issues are coming up in the city that I'd like you guys to take a look at if we can. Whether it's a memo or study session, it doesn't matter. In anticipation of the state or whoever opening up Fairview Developmental Center for any kind of, housing of people, however they're going to do that, if they do it. Over the years, we've had some inability to make sure that the developmental center can handle sewer issues, that they don't have blockage. We've talked about this. Rob talked about it. I just want to get some information to make sure that if they open that center for anything, that we're going to be prepared to handle pretty substantial amount of sewer coming out, increase in sewer coming out of there. So that's one item I'd like to get some information on from you guys. The second item has to do with and I can't remember the name of it, but the big project they're getting ready to look at north of the 405 behind SoCo.
It's
Whatever they're calling it.
Yeah.
1,057 homes.
Yeah. The Planning Commission has continued discussing that item. They were supposed to talk about it tonight, and they've continued the item. I want to make sure that we have the proper sewer and wastewater things that the city needs to look at. If we could get some information on that as well, to make sure that project is fully vetted in terms of waste and sewer. Just whatever information you guys can come up with for us.
Is that the Trinity property?
Yeah.
No, it's the property. It's above. It's right where SoCo is on Highland and Sunflower. It's behind it and to the side of it, where they're demolishing all that industrial and what they're going to build a 7-story parking structure and 7-story. How many? Like 1,200 units, Jim?
Almost.
1,057.
Yeah. So whatever information we can get on that as well, I'd appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I just want to get your permission. Anyway, Mike, at this one-to-one that Bob Ooten and I had with Scott, we discussed this about Fairview. It's funny you bringing it up because we already talked about it and we're already on top of it too.
Glad to hear it.
Well,
Mr. President.
the
Mr. President, I'm sorry. We also received public comment from Mr. Mosier on this item that needs to be read aloud.
Okay, go ahead.
His comments are that several points are unclear. Number one, the attached report from ADS Environmental Services indicates monitoring was conducted at 2 stations, Junip 01 at Tewinkle Park, where flow came from the fairgrounds and dog park, and Mendoza RG apparently at the pump station, where the rain gauge was mounted, but sewer flow was not measured by ADS. An impressive correlation was found between the storm event rainfall measured at Mendoza and the excess sewer flow measured at Junip 01. However, the staff report contains no analysis I can find correlating the ADS measured flow at Junip 01 with the total flow estimated at the Mendoza pump station. What fraction of the total excess flow seen at the pump station is accounted for by the excess flow detected at Junip 01? In other words, do the results demonstrate the fairgrounds is the entire problem or only one player in a wider problem? Number 2, the staff report analysis says district maintenance staff performed a dye test on a number of drain inlets located on the fairground property and identified 2 that were connected to the sewer system. These 2 inlets were later filled in with concrete. Were these drain inlets identified by the earlier smoke test? Were they filled with concrete after March 12th? That is, after the data being reported was collected. If they were filled prior to March 12th, the filling seems to have had no effect. Since they have been filled, where does the water go now? Were there any inlets identified by the smoke test that staff's dye test indicated were not connected to the sewer system? If so, how would we explain that? That concludes his comments.
Hmm.
Those are pretty good comments.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to address that at this point or not, but he does bring up a few concerns.
Sounds like a good subject for the study session.
There
That's
you
what
go.
I was just going to
Why
say.
don't we
That.
include that?
Why don't we just send a memo saying that, you know, it was well received what you said, but we're waiting. We'll be talking about it at the study session.
Well, if I may, we did respond to Mr.
Well,
Mosher.
we'll put it on the agenda.
Well, we did respond to Mr. Mosher, and you do have a copy of our response. Mike and I both responded to him, and you do have a copy of those responses before you.
Oh, okay. I do.
Well, does anybody object to us putting it on the study session? I mean,
Well,
or is it?
no, Jim, I think we need to have both staff's analysis and his questions on the study session in that report, in the agenda report.
Okay.
Let's move along.
Treasurer's report. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, board members. This is your quarterly review of your investments. As of March 31st, the portfolio was earning 1.552% on a duration of 616 days. That's about 1.7 years. And looking at the markets today, the Dow had closed up 358 points at 24,134. But the quarter has been a pretty wild quarter. If any of you look at your retirement funds,
No, I'm gonna
yes,
ignore.
please don't open those envelopes when they come in. But the market, the Dow opened the year at 28,868 and worked its way up to a high of 29,551 on February 12th. And then just a little over a month later, on March 23rd, we were down at 18,592 for a drop from its high to that point of 37%. Rallied back into the 24,134, but even that is down 16.4% from the opening of the year. In the attached treasurer's report on page 10, there's a graph that shows some of our benchmark indices. And when you look at the treasuries, once we hit about that middle of February mark, rates just fall off the cliff. And they just plummet down to virtually zero. As an example, the 5-year treasury at the beginning of the year was earning 1.67%. And today, that same 5-year treasury is 0.41%, or it's gone down 75% in value. And what all this has done with your portfolio is, because a lot of our investments are all in fixed income securities and securities tied to the federal government and federal agencies, we've had a number of calls during just the month of March alone. We had 7 investments that were called. $4.7 million of your portfolio was called during the month of March. We did have one certificate of deposit that matured during the month, but that certificate of deposit that matured and the investments that were called, they had a weighted average rate of 1.8%. During the month of March, we did make 13 investments to try to get as much of that reinvested back as we could. And the weighted average of those reinvestments was 1.3%. So we dropped about 0.5% in earnings during the activity that happened during the month of March. We also saw with the government agency securities and the rates dropping as drastically as they had, we've kind of shifted the portfolio a little bit, somewhat away from government agencies, and a fair amount of them have been moved over to negotiable certificates of deposit that are within the FDIC insurance limit. They were a little bit slower to react to the drop-off in the rates of the treasuries, and so we were able to get some investments out and still placed at a fairly decent levels. I do foresee that in the foreseeable future, any investments that we have that do have call features will continue to be called, and we'll be continuing to try to replace those back out at whatever the market values happen to be at the time. This activity during the month of March was probably the biggest activity I've ever seen while investing the district's funds, and definitely that quarter has just been a crazy quarter with what we've seen with rates going from where they were down to virtually zero in a short period of time. This is an action item, so when you're done with any questions that you may have, you do need to take action on the investment report for the month of March. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Any questions of Mark?
I would say a good thing we have Mark to protect us.
He can perform miracles.
Right.
I'd like to move for approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
No, you can't. Got a roll call.
Oh, it's a
Director
roll.
Perry,
Yes.
Director Schaefer,
Yes.
Secretary Schaefer,
Yes.
Vice President Uten,
Yes.
President Ferryman.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Let's move along to the attorney's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did send you an interesting case on franchise fees recently, but tonight I have no report to make to the board. Thank you.
Any question of Alan?
Just already got that hat.
Yeah, we're gonna have to steal that hat from him.
Yeah, till my barber's back in business.
Okay, local meetings. I went to the National Water Research Institute meeting that we finally had after like 3 months. The general manager was ill, and he's fine now. That's the good news. And he's coming out of the chutes pretty fast. So he's developing a work plan and present the budget, and it's going to be in favor. It's going to be a very balanced budget. And they're also going to entertain the fact that the employees haven't had a raise in 4 years, and they're going to move them up a bit. And the numbers that were tossed around was the maximum of $74,000. But taking into consideration it's a 4-year dry spell. So at any rate, the OCOG was the next meeting I went to, and they appointed or elected Trevor O'Neill as president and Wendy Buckman as vice president. And October 9th, they rescheduled the General Assembly at Disneyland, until that date, and that may not be accurate, but they had to set something. And then also they're working on the final budget there. But they did have a discussion, and it's probably not going to go anywhere. But SCAG is kind of on top of the OCOG, and OCOG would like to kind of separate from SCAG, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And they're going to have that in a study session, so it's probably kind of premature to mention it. But and I doubt very seriously if anything will come of it. But there it is. Okay, that's all I have. Sand River.
That meeting was canceled, Jim.
Yeah, right. ISDOC, Mike,
Okay.
or yeah.
That's Arlene.
One of the Schaefers will do it. Anyway, ISDOC was, let's see, what was it? We did a Zoom for the first time, so that was something different. And on the agenda, they just more or less talked about what was going on with LAFCO, and as far as the budget, the way it's coming in, as far as everybody approving it. And let's see, what else? And then they talked about their aqua time, which I don't have to report to you because we're not water, but they changed their conference meeting too from May to July. So that was about it on that. And then on my legislation committee that I sit on for CSDA, we met on the 9th of March, and that was 2 to 5 o'clock. And it was long because there's a lot of legislation coming in. And apparently the legislators won't be back till May 10th, but who knows, that could be changing too. So anyway, I had a meeting on that. Then I sat in on Assemblywoman Cully. She had a Facebook time where she invited different people to come sit on it. And that was involved with Harley Rhoda. And they got to discuss the Taxpayers Association legislation and all that was going on. So I sat in on that. And then the Finance Committee for CSDA, we had a meeting on that. And we're going to have another one, I guess, this next week, because we've got some new people that want some loans. So we're real happy over that. And let's see, what did I leave out? Oh, and then, of course, when Joe McKinsey and I went through all the recommendations on 13 different people applying for seat B in CSDA, which would put them on the board of directors for CSDA. And we finally selected Don Bartz, B-A-R-T-Z, and he's a general manager, really good. I had his paper right here, and now I don't know what I did with it. Too many papers. Anyway, I think we'll be real happy with him because he's very involved in the CSDA. And we looked for somebody who'd been going to the workshops, who had experience, who had an understanding of what's taking place, and being able to just pick up and run with it. And so I think he's ours. And we're happy over that. That was a good move for us on that. And aside from that, what else did I have? Oh, the Chamber of Commerce. I went to a meeting with Chamber of Commerce. It's called the Government Affairs committee meeting. And we met at the new Chamber of Commerce office. I don't know if you're aware, they have a new office. Most of you probably know. It's at Triangle Square. It's on the first floor. And we have all the legislators, represented people there. So we talked on what was going on and what was happening with the election at that time. And aside from that, I'm trying to think. I don't think there's anything else. I think that. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Mike?
Yeah, nothing to report, Jim, on SDRMA. We have a board meeting next week, and I'll give a report next meeting.
Bob?
No, for the most part, I just attended the sanitary district meetings that you all attended, or Arlene and I attended one-on-one with Scott.
Mhm.
I couldn't figure out how to get into the Orange County Sand District meeting, but I've talked to staff over there, and they've explained how to do that. So I'll be in the public for the next meeting. And there was no operations committee meeting this month. So.
Okay.
I have, Jim, I have a couple meetings I attended. I attended that video conference with Arlene, with Harley Ruda and Kadi Norris Petrie. And one of the things I highlighted, Costa Mesa is going to get $668,000 in funds for the city from the federal government, which I thought was pretty good.
Mhm.
And they figure that the COVID-19 surge is going to hit in mid-May. So we'll see what happens there. I think it's getting better than that. And then we had our ad hoc committee meeting, Mike and myself and the crew. And we finalized our ad hoc committee, and we don't plan on meeting unless we're going to meet with this other matter that popped up. So we did complete all of our assignments for that ad hoc committee on the changes to the different policies. And then I also attended one city council meeting, and they talked about, that was on April 7th, the lighthouse. Now, at that time, they had 26 participants with meals and services that were housed at the lighthouse. And then, let's see, they had 28 participants in the hotels. And they also, the county was bringing in, or the county or state was bringing in 78 RV trailers into the county, and Costa Mesa was going to get 10 that were going to be, I think at the fairgrounds, put at the fairgrounds for the homeless. But that's the things that affected us the most, just those three items.
I had a question to Art.
Yes.
Art, will your group, you and Mike, will you be reporting back to us to let us know what changes you made or what
I think Dana's going to be retyping up everything, and then we'll probably present it at a study session, I'm assuming. She did all of the changes for us and had all the inputs were given to her for the changes.
Oh, good.
But I think that's the plan. If Dana, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Actually, I'm going to make the revisions to the employee handbook, and then I believe Angela is going to do the revisions to the operations code and admin regulations.
Okay, that's what I thought. And
Yeah,
are we going to review that as a full board at one point?
I believe it'll be on the agenda for your approval, right, Scott?
Yes.
That sounds
So
good.
that-
We'll have it at a study session for discussion, and then we'll bring it back to a regular board meeting for approval.
Okay, that's what I
Okay.
thought.
That would be in May then. Okay.
Probably in June.
Scott, could I get the ordinances in advance of that?
Yes, of course.
Did the city council, are they making any progress on the second homeless shelter?
Yeah, let's see. They did. Let me see where I wrote that down. At the Airway project, yes, they're having constructions planned. It said that construction plans are coming forward. So that's the last thing I heard. That was on April 7th.
Okay,
And
so
they have a request for $3 million from the county to help pay for that. So I knew that would affect us financially, because I think we are going to donate another $50,000, I think. But that's what the plans are being in construction right now.
Okay, thank you.
We'll go move along to old business. Anybody have anything that they want to bring up? New business.
I think these meetings are doing pretty good with Zoom. I think we're getting all pretty used to it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have any choice, so,
I know.
we gotta. Oral communication and director comments. Anybody got anything?
I had a comment on the director's comments. I just was curious on this CSDA is going to have do away with the conference naturally. So how are we handling it as far as us? We had received something on it saying that they have different workshops. Now, if we want to go to a workshop, how do we handle that? Or, you know, I know when I talked to Scott on the one-to-one, he had indicated that Gina and Nalani were going to handle it. But I didn't know if that meant we don't have to worry about any of this, or we should be part of it.
Are you talking about the legislative or the
No.
legislative conference? It's going to be a virtual conference?
No, I was talking about the one in August.
CSDA.
The conference?
CSDA.
Yeah, I don't know if we have any more information on what they're doing in the conference. I just received an email just a few minutes ago that they officially canceled the General Manager Summit in Tahoe. So that's officially canceled.
Oh.
I haven't received any official word that the conference was canceled yet.
What was the date of the managers conference?
It was in end of June.
Okay, so the other one's in August, so we'll see what happens.
Right.
And on the legislation days, while we're talking about that, what happens on that? Do we all decide to do Zooms or?
Again, I don't know. All I know is it's virtual. So I'll have staff follow up on it. It's just going to be a virtual conference, which, yeah, it'll probably all teleconference on Zoom or whatever they use for teleconferencing.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to Megan too, because, you know, if there's more than one workshop, we got to figure out how people can get in on workshops and not miss the one that they want.
Right.
Okay, we don't have a closed session. And so closing items, we're going to adjourn this meeting at 6:05.
Great.
Great.
Very good.
Right.
Wow,
Pretty
that's
good.
good.
Everyone.
Very good.